Could Cam Rising be Utah's quarterback in 2025? Let's discuss on today's Locked On Utes.
You are Locked On Utes, your daily podcast on the Utah Utes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for making Locked On Utes your first listen every single day. We are available on all platforms, including YouTube and wherever you may get your podcast. If it's your first time listening to our show, make sure you like and subscribe. Love interacting with all of you in the YouTube comments as well as on social media, where you can follow our show at Locked On Utes on X today. Today's episode of Locked On Utes is brought to you by FanDuel. You can make every moment more right now, where new customers can get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 with any winning $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com/locked-on to get started. My name is GT Wistricll, former intern inside the University of Utah Athletic Department. Excited to be joined by Elijah Grayson Murray of Fan Nation All Utes on today's show. And Elijah, Cam Rising is always a interesting conversation because, everything that's happened with the eligibility and, just the injuries, and hey, this is going to be his final season with the team coming up. So we thought he's one of the best quarterbacks to ever play for the University of Utah, led them to unparalleled heights.
Right.
But he actually might have another year left. If you look at what the U.S. Justice Department made official, as published by Stuart Mandel from The Athletic, they passed it. You can have unlimited transfers official, and athletes who had to sit out a year under the old transfer rules are still eligible in college and will get a year of eligibility restored and could come back next year. So does that mean Cam Rising could come back? I'd love to sit here and tell you all he can, but as Michelle Bodkin of KSL Sports did a great job publishing a story on and talking about, Michelle will actually join us later this week on the show, said the rule only applies to athletes who transferred to multiple schools during that time frame. So Cam will actually not have an extra year eligibility, but Elijah, it's hard not to at least get a little bit excited about the idea of one of the best to ever wear a Utah helmet having that extra year back, but unfortunately not going to be the case.
Right. I'm a senior now, going to be a senior at the U, and having, he's literally been the quarterback all 4 years. And, outside of the little bit with Charlie Brewer, which we will not talk about.
No, Charlie Brewer's like that. What's that one, Encanto? They're like, we don't talk about Bruno. We don't talk about Brewer on this show.
Yeah, exactly. So besides that, it's been all Cam. Then you had the little bit with the pig farmer and Nate Johnson. So, but for the majority, it's been pretty steady with him. And when I first heard that, I was like, there's no way, right? Especially with Isaac Wilson and waiting in the wings and all the stuff we brought in with the JUCO quarterback and then Sam Huard. It just didn't seem like, even if he did have the ability to, that he would. But that would have been really exciting if he could have, just because he is so experienced and he is kind of the face of the program. But I do think also that would have negative impact on Isaac Wilson staying with the U. So.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And I want to talk about the depth in a second, but I want to talk about just how crazy Cam Rising's path to Utah is. Cam was the second best transfer from the state of Texas to come to Utah in 2018. As all of you are listening to know, of course, I was the first one, since I transferred to the University of Utah from North Texas in the spring of 2019, coming up to Utah. So Cam will have to settle for second there, unfortunately. Me and my 2,400 subscribers obviously have something to say about that. But Cam, since coming over to Utah, let's look back at what he did in that 2018 year, because he is actually the same high school class as me. He had to redshirt, and then transferred to Utah, had to sit out in 2019, started versus USC in the first game of the COVID-shortened season, got hurt right away, Jake Bentley time from there on out. Started in 2021 and 2022. Oh, the glory years. Great times for the University of Utah football program. And then, of course, the medical red shirt this last year. So that will make 2024 his 7th and final year of college football. And I know there's a lot of stuff in there, right? There's the red shirt year. There's a transfer year. There's a medical red shirt year. There's a lot of mumbo jumbo. But Cam won't get the extra year of eligibility, as we discussed, like that. And honestly, I think, Elijah, you said for maybe the biggest reason why that's probably best. As much as I'm excited for Cam to come back, because this Utah team, what they can win next year. And if Cam could come back another year, I would still welcome him back, because he gives Utah the best chance to win.
Right.
The truth is, if that was the case, Utah might have to start a lot all over recruiting wise, because I think a large pitch that's been to Brandon Rose, Isaac Wilson, Sam Huard, who just transferred to Utah, Wyatt Becker, even Dallin Engelman, the JUCO who just Utah added.
Right.
They're all excited to have an opportunity for compete for the job in 2025.
Mm-hmm.
If Cam Rising was the starter again next year, I think almost all of those guys would depart the program, and you'd be starting over from square one for recruiting, which is not a great thing to have to do.
Not at all. Not at all. And I think Isaac showed a lot of promise in the spring game and throughout spring camp. And so I think everyone's kind of chomping at the bit just to see what he could do, with the reins. And I think, obviously everyone is so grateful to have Cam as the quarterback. But also sometimes you're like, it's time for a changing of the guard. It's time for a new era. And I think it's too much to risk. Obviously, it can't happen. But if it could happen, it'd probably be too much to risk even having him come back, just because Isaac is such a prolific prospect and talent.
Yeah, he is. And he's still going to have to win the job too, even with that. And those other guys would be not the biggest fans too. But before we talk about the depth of the Utah quarterback room for the future, Elijah, I just want to say, imagine if Cam could come back in 2025. That would be crazy because, well, yes, in 2026, then it's like, who in the world is going to be our starting quarterback? Like, there's lots of things that we've been talking about for a while that would change their plans.
Right.
The fact is, the Utah offense, I would feel better about it in 2025 than I would otherwise, because as high as I am on Isaac Wilson, you mentioned change can be a good thing a lot of times, and it could be. College football, Isaac Wilson at the collegiate level is an unknown. He did really well at the high school level, but we've not seen a lot of guys who are high recruits not always pan out. Same thing with all these other guys. There's a reason Sam Huard was at Cal Poly, despite being a 5-star when he went to Washington. So if Cam could come back, there are a lot of positives, because there just aren't quarterbacks with that level of experience.
Right.
And he might be the only quarterback who would go into his 8th year of college football if he didn't somehow return in 2025. So there are a lot of positives if he was able to do it, because guys with that much championship experience and that much time in college, I got to believe it would have led to a lot of wins for Utah if it was on the cards.
Right. And it would also help with the transfer portal. I think he's a big reason why we got the likes of Dorian Singer and Tayshawn Lyons back, and obviously Keithy returning. He is the guy that people want to play with, that people would play for. I think if he could come back, that would easily lead to another season of us being the Big 12 favorite. Another shot at a playoff berth. I think, if hypothetically, that would be an incredible scenario. And I don't think anyone would scoff at the opportunity to have him back.
No, I don't think anyone would either. So that's where it's not going to be a thing in 2025, but it's fun to dream about the what if. Now, who is going to be the quarterback in 2025? Let's talk about the state of the Utah quarterback room in one moment. But first, I want to talk to you all about one of the sponsors of today's episode of Locked On Utes. It's our friends at LinkedIn Talent Solutions. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just another job board. They have a vast network of professionals that help you hire professionals you just simply can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a new job but might be open to the perfect role. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place, simply put. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. You can hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. LinkedIn knows that small businesses are wearing so many hats nowadays, and they might not just have the time and resources to hire. That's why LinkedIn is constantly trying to figure out new ways that makes the process quicker and easier. And they even just launched a feature that helps you write job descriptions, making the process that much quicker. 2.5 million small businesses use LinkedIn for hiring. You can post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. It's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege, all caps, no spaces, to post your job for free. Terms and conditions do apply. Elijah, the Utah quarterback room has always been something over the years that has generated a lot of headlines and hype. We've mentioned the days of Charlie Brewer and Jake Bentley. How about we've seen Jaquindon Jackson battling it out with Bryson Barnes not so long ago. There's been all kind of quarterback battles. There's been transfers. It's the most important position on the field. It's always going to generate headlines. But the truth is, I think the Utah quarterback room is in a very good spot. I felt that way when they just had Isaac Wilson and Brandon Rose in there, because for having 3 quarterbacks, I believe that Cam, obviously for 24, I believe Cam Rising is the guy who starts all the games. And if Cam got hurt and you need someone else to come in and fill in, that is where Brandon Rose or Isaac Wilson can do that very adequately. But now Utah's had even more guys to try to push them and make them better. To me, they've made a strong room even stronger. Adding Sam Huard, had his struggles at the Power 5 level, had some success at Cal Poly. To me, this is a low risk, high reward. So is adding Dallin Engelman. This is a guy who played JUCO, but he flashed a lot of good things at that level. He's going to have this year to kind of sit back and develop. Feels like there are several quality backup options for Cam Rising, as well as potential future successors to Bad Moon himself.
Yeah, 100%. I think one of the biggest stories in the spring game was the fact that Rose did not look as good as everyone expected him to look, especially, being in the system for so long and, kind of having the time to recover from his injury. And so I think the additions of Huard especially, I think I was a very necessary addition. I think it just kind of shores up the room for, fall camp. And I think if Cam does suffer from another injury, Utah fans could be feel a lot more secure in the options that we have trailing behind him.
Yeah, I think you have to with the additions to this room that Utah has made. And you mentioned Rose a little bit. Rose is a tough one, right? Because he didn't look great at all times in the bowl game, but I also thought the supporting cast wasn't exceptional there too. So that's where how much of those struggles are him, because he did miss some throws and make some mistakes. But also I thought he was under pressure a lot and asked to do things that maybe but Isaac more so didn't have as many issues with overall. But that doesn't take away the fact that there's a reason Isaac Wilson was a 4-star. His potential is incredible. He's coming off a state championship run where he was absolutely electric, and he looked really good in the spring game. And all you can do is, when things go your way, make the most of those opportunities. And that's what he did. And yes, Isaac turned the ball over during spring ball. We'd heard them talked about for a few times, but there's no denying the potential. And Elijah, there's a reason when we open this episode that one of the things you were talked about is, even though that Isaac is an unknown, you're really fired up to see him. And I think a lot of Utah fans are, because just based on some of the initial signs, he seems to have that special factor that some quarterbacks, just like Cam Rising, has shown he's capable of achieving and making the most of big opportunities and moments.
Right. And, I think it helps even more with his development that he's kind of able to know that, hey, I'm not going to start this year, but I can learn from someone like Cam who has the leadership abilities, and obviously just the experience. That's going to be invaluable for Wilson coming next year when he has to, battle for the starting position. And also Cam, after the spring game, when asked about, Wilson and his progression over spring camp and just how he has grown as a leader and everything, Cam had nothing but positive things to say about him. And, you kind of can't help but smile as a Utah fan. You're just like, dang, that's a really good sign for the future of the program.
It is a great sign for the future of the program. And I think Rose is a guy who's been here for years, right? So he's got a great knowledge of the playbook. He can still make this interesting. Isaac has all the potential in the world. And we hadn't even mentioned the Sam Huards yet, who come over from places like Washington and were a 5-star for a reason. And sometimes you got to fail on the biggest stage before you find your success. He failed at Washington. He had a lot of success at Cal Poly. Now here he is with an opportunity back at the University of Utah. And all of these, Rose has by far the most knowledge of the playbook. We already said that. And Wilson is at a good point too, because he's picked it up ever since, I'm sure, his season ended. But now Huard, I'm sure he's done nothing but grind the playbook. I'm sure Engelman, all of these guys should look at the depth chart and say, I have a chance to be the backup quarterback. Mm-hmm. And if I can be the backup quarterback this year, that makes me in the driver's seat to be the starter next year. Elijah, I expect a highly competitive fall camp with all 4 of these backups, because that's what they will be to Cam Rising, thinking I'm the second best guy in this room, and I want this to be my team in 2025.
Right. It kind of gets me a little hyped up because, when you go see the practices and you go look at the viewing, you see all the quarterbacks giving it their all, and obviously in the spring it was literally just Rose, Batari, Wilson, and obviously Cam. But with the other additions, that's going to be just an insane battle. And it's not even for the starting QB spot, like you mentioned, it's for QB2. But holding the QB2 spot this season is such a leg up, for 2025, that it's going to be a heated battle.
It absolutely will be. And yeah, you mentioned Batari too. That's another guy who factors into the backup role, but obviously we kind of know what happened to him depth chart wise. Look, maybe he can beat out one of these guys that we mentioned. Right. It's clearly Wilson and Rose ahead of him. And, we'll see. I'm sure Huard will have probably well ahead of him too. I think Engelman's the one that he'll kind of be battling with that position for this year. But his experience, brings a lot to this Utah team, I feel like, overall. And one fascinating thing for 2025 too is, look, I have Moose Bingham on, who I think breaks down the game as well as anyone I do, the former Utah kicker who joins us from time to time. The way he talks about Wyatt Becker, he's incredibly high on him. There are a lot of people that are really high on Wyatt Becker. There are people who think he can become even more than a 3-star and a 4-star. Right. I would be shocked if he started a true freshman in 2025. But there's no question that even though you're losing Cam Rising, this room will remain strong because not only do you have all these guys who have been in the program with experience trying to start during spring ball, but you bring in a guy like Becker who maybe it just takes him a year to get everything down, and then he could be the guy who that very next year could emerge as the best of the bunch.
Right. And correct me if I'm wrong, but we also have Shaker Risig coming in 2025.
Well, maybe. Trying to remember off the top of my head, but either way, keep going.
Either way, like Utah has been really pushing to secure the future of the program, especially at the quarterback spot. Trying to shore up the line for whoever does start. But yeah, I mean, Becker's not someone to scoff at either. Like you said, he probably won't start as a true freshman because of the experience that all the quarterbacks behind Cam this year will have under their belts. But come 2026, that would set Becker up for an immense success, depending on how the situation shapes up with Isaac Wilson.
And you were right. Shaker did commit to Utah. It was back in February. I'm sure we talked about it on the show, even just one of those things where there's been so much talk about the quarterbacks Utah's been adding and heard so much about Becker. I totally forgot about Shaker. So my apologies to him. Hey, Shaker, if you want to come in and write it up at Utah and you want to use this clip where I'll mention all the future Utah quarterbacks and your name wasn't mentioned, please feel free to go ahead and you do so, because I apologize for that. But the Utah quarterback room is remaining incredibly strong, and it's going to be exciting what this team can do in 2024, backing up Cam, because you feel good about the options there. And in 2025, who will emerge as the starter? All fun things will be following along here at Locked On Utes. But before we get out of here today, Elijah, you were a student at the University of Utah, so I'm curious to get your perspective on what this year in the athletic calendar was like for you and what you'll most remember about the 2023-2024 season. I want to discuss that topic with you in one moment. But first, I want to talk to you about one of the sponsors of our episode of Locked On Utes today. It is our fantastic friends at FanDuel Sportsbook. It's winner take all time in the NBA and NHL, and FanDuel is giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 to bet on spreads, money lines, player props, and so much more. You can visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make every playoff shot count. Whether it's on the ice or the hardwood, it's been a great postseason in 2024. Unfortunately, my Minnesota Timberwolves were unable to reach the NBA Finals, but what a fun one it should be. Will the clutch gene of Luka and Kyrie carry their way over one of the best pure starting fives I feel like we've seen a long time in the NBA? I can't wait to find out. And on top of all the great NHL playoff action, haven't even mentioned MLB regular season, of course, which is still growing strong. So if you guys want to get in on all the great odds, lines, and actions going on, make sure you head over to FanDuel today. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Elijah, you mentioned you'll be a senior in the 2024-2025 athletic calendar, but I am curious from your perspective, someone who went to all the games, was in the must, you've done your coverage for this as well too, but I am curious just what you will remember as a student about the 2023-2024 athletic calendar year for Utah football.
You want to know something funny? So actually, during the football season, I was in Arizona because I didn't have housing in Utah. So the only game I was able to attend this year was the one down in Tucson. And that was not a fun game to attend. So that's my only memory of in person of this football season, which kind of encapsulates the full season into one game.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, honestly, though, if any season was one to miss, it was probably this one. Just based on everything that happened. But no, like the Arizona game, even though that was the only game I went to, it was a blast. The rain kind of was in Utah's favor for which was pretty funny. But then we were all confused at the start of the game. We were like, what is going on? Where are our players? And then it came out that everyone had the flu. And so it was a mess, but it was fun. And the Utah fans, they traveled strong. It was a good time. So that's my memory of the football season.
Do you have any better ones in the spring? You get to any basketball games that made it a little more memorable?
Yeah. So in terms of Utah athletics, I think Davon Smith, watching him play, that was an absolute joy. Sad that he wasn't able to stay, but with the addition of Ezra Asor, I think that's going to be a massive boost for us. And also, Utah baseball, let's give it up for them for their historic season. It didn't end the way that many wanted to, but the regular season was impressive. And pitcher of the year, Bryson Van Sickle. I think there was some really good. Obviously, also. Gymnastics winning the Pac-12 like the fourth year in a row. So, there's a lot of spring moments that were really, really fun to be a part of.
Yeah, lots of spectacular memories for this Utah athletics program and plenty of more to come this fall and spring too in the 2024-2025 season. But we still got a while to go till football season. So if you guys want more Utah football updates, make sure you guys head over and check out Elijah's X account at Elijah G. Murray, and he writes at Fan Nation on Utes. So you can check out all of the work that he has going on over there. Elijah, thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much. Anytime.
That's going to do it for today's edition of Locked On Utes. We'll be back with you this week. Lots of fun things to come out, whether it's reacting to lists or especially in particular, talking about some of the best moments on the year for a Utah athletics. Can't wait to do more of that with all of you on Locked On Utes. We'll see you soon.